Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout.
Hi, Fit Mama, and welcome to episode 22. How is change changing you? I know it happens to all of us. We're going along in life just fine, and things are working out the way we want them to. Maybe we have a feeling that this won't be sustainable long term, but we aren't ready to think about that quite yet or take a chance. So we go along the same way as we've been going. Or maybe we are ready for change, but we're scared. Or maybe something changed and we had no control over it, and life is never the same again. I cannot count how many times I have been blindsided or just been given news that was going to forever change my life. I mean, you know that feeling when someone says, this happened, or that person did this, or you're pregnant and you're going to have a baby, right? This is big news, and it could be good or it could be not so good, but it changes the course of your life forever. I remember hearing the news. I remember exactly where I was when my parents told me they were getting a divorce. There are certain things that are just etched in our minds forever. It doesn't even matter if you see it coming. I mean, if I look back, I really think, yeah, I could have saw that coming. I could have seen this coming. I could have known that was about to happen. But no matter what, whether you see it or not, it's still such a devastation, right? These changes that go on, things that will never be the same again. I have so many examples. But have you ever felt this way? And what would things be like if they didn't ever change? If everything stayed the same? Actually, it's probably not something that we'd want. And that's why embracing change or knowing how you respond to change is such a vital piece of the puzzle. It's a piece of that work in that actually does have an effect on your workouts. Because imagine this, there's a situation that puts you into a tailspin in your life, whether it's having a baby, whether it's someone you know having a baby, or a divorce, or a marriage, or anything. And it's a wonder how you respond to it, because that will affect your life. It'll affect your lifestyle. It'll affect the habits that you engage in every single day. And here's the good news. We are made to adapt to change. It's in our DNA as humans, right? We wouldn't have gotten this far if we did not adapt to change. And it could be something like a big event or a move or a job change or the birth of your child. But it also doesn't have to be something tangible. Have you ever just found that it comes a time where you don't know what the turning point was, but you just don't feel the same? Nothing specifically happened, but all of a sudden, you know you're not the same person as you were yesterday. Maybe there's just little changes that happen or decreases in your motivation over time. You don't have that usual inspiration and motivation for things that you did before. You're not excited for each new day or what it brings, and you feel like you're stuck in a rut. Does that sound familiar? Well, if it does, it might be that you are a little afraid of change and that you're interpreting it as a threat to yourself and your life as you know it. And the good news is, though, is that this has a remedy. It's not to say it's easy, but identifying that you could be afraid of change or that you're very attached to the way things are is a really great first step, because there something can be done about it. Right? If you highlight it, if you see it, if you notice it, you bring it to the surface, all of a sudden, you have a choice whether you want to deal with it. It doesn't mean you have to deal with it, but something can be done if you're ready to deal with it. And we've all heard this before, and I'm going to go into why this is so important to embrace. Change is inevitable. Change is the only inevitable, right? We say, okay, death and taxes, yes. And in addition to that, change, right? It's the only guarantee. It's the only for sure thing that is happening because time is always ticking. We are always aging. Life is passing us by. And embracing that understanding allows you to live more fully in it. Did you realize that nothing, even when you're staring at it and it looks solid, nothing is really real? I mean, that table that you're staring at, that chair you're sitting on, or that car you're driving, even though it feels solid, it may look solid, you could knock on it. Did you know that it's not actually anything? I know that seems kind of weird, but if you look at it under a microscope and magnify and magnify and magnify that microscope down to the tiniest of cells that your naked eye could not see, but if you used a microscope and you kept magnifying it down, actually at the very base of it all, of the table, of the chairs, of you, of everything, is space, is actually nothing. No thing, nothing at all. Nothing. Everything is actually just these tiny cells in space, these tiny atoms that make up cells. And they're just these little moving particles. They're always moving. Nothing is actually static. Nothing is not moving. I know. It takes a while to wrap your head around it, so I'm going to say it one more time. Everything is in constant motion. Everything. And it's really cool when you see the science of it, when you understand the physics of it, which you don't actually even understand. You just have to hear me tell you. I mean, I've always been a lover of science, but this is what it really boils down to. At the cellular level, everything around you, including you, is in constant motion. Not only a little bit of motion, and not only sometimes, but everything. And it's moving really quickly. These little particles, they move fast. So things are always moving. We're moving as humans, that means up, down, forward, backward, all in all directions. And we're always moving. So how do we expect things around us to be the same, to be constant? And this is one of the hardest things to understand. And this is why I teach this idea of getting in the gray and getting really comfortable in this uncomfortable discomfort of change, of life is random sometimes. Understanding that we don't have that much control over things at the end of the day is actually quite a relief, right? There's many things you have control over, but there is a certain paralysis by analysis that happens when we think that we have to control everything, and we don't. So make sure you realize that you don't have to be in control and that many things are not under your control. So how is change changing you? Do you feel discomfort in your body as you hear these words, as you hear me explaining this physical phenomenon that everything is moving all the time? It's kind of crazy, right? It is really crazy. But remember, it's in your DNA to adapt. That everything around you is in constant motion. And if you can accept that and embrace that, it's really, 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 really going to improve how you flow through life, right? Because it really is a flow. Everything's moving. Can we get into the flow? Can we jump into that lazy river and allow the river to take us from here to there without trying to swim upstream like it feels so comfortable to do, because that's what we've been doing for so long. And this paralysis by analysis can come from the same thing, that is paralysis from change. And I mean, I know very, very, very close and dear to my heart how many things can change with change. I'm very familiar with change. I mean, me personally, and if you know me personally, you know that I went to 5 schools before I even finished grade 8. I ended up going to 3 high schools. 3 high schools. I mean, I was in high school for 5 years at the time, but 3 in 5 years? Nobody wants to go to 3 schools in 5 years. Yes, you heard that. 3 high schools. I mean, anyone who's been to one high school knows that you don't want to go to a different one, especially after 1 or 2 years. And you most definitely don't want to change high schools twice. But it wasn't my choice. My parents were moving. My parents were getting together. My parents were switching jobs, moving cities. And that was a priority for them. It wasn't my choice. And I had no choice, which made it hard, right? And at one point I did have a choice. They were moving 5 hours away and I had a choice to stay in the city by myself and go switch to a boarding school or to move to my third high school in a completely different city. So I had these choices to make. And while I had choices, no choices felt like good choices at the time, of course. So it's tough, right? It gets you very paralyzed if you can't make decisions or if you regret things or question yourself over and over. But this is lessons. This is life lessons, as I now know. At the time, this constant changing was very disheartening for me, especially as a teenager. It led me to act differently and not connect as deeply with people. I remember in high school, I was very, very timid. I wasn't so shy as guarded was really a better word. I was very questioning and always just being at arm's length, which made it difficult to become close friends with people. And while I did connect very deeply with people, I had to really trust them. And it took a lot for me to do that. So it led me to act differently. And I know I would have been a different person had I gone to the same high school from grade 9 all the way till I graduated at the age of 19. While for me, the moving and that constant change felt so horrible at the time, looking back on it now, it is one of the greatest opportunities that I had for growth while growing up. Yes, we're all growing and changing all the time, and especially during puberty and our high school years, I had a lot of growth. But this added and gave me that next level of personal growth and development, specifically around developing my character. Who was I going to be? Because if I ended up in a different high school next year, was I going to be the same person? And even if people did or didn't know these things about me, how could I choose to show up every single day? And so this actually did give me a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity. I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't even know how to deal with it, but I just dealt with it, right? We just do what we have to do. How about yourself? Can you look back at a time in your life or times in your life and see something that you thought was a nightmare at the time and ended up being a gift? Something you thought you couldn't make it through, but actually made you the person that you are today? Did that adversity actually help shape you to be this incredible person? You know, our parents did these things or acted in certain ways, and we often feel very victimized by these things. And often if we can start to change the story around and see how it could be a gift that they were this way, even if it was horrible, right? And I mean, my situation wasn't horrible. And at the time, I remember saying to my parents when I had braces, right? Braces was for my own good. They wanted me to have straight teeth, and I wanted to probably have straight teeth. But at the same time, I remember I used to say, this is child abuse to my own parents. Mama, this is child abuse. This hurts so much. Stop it with these braces, right? And I was blaming her. What was that story? How was I keeping myself as a victim and unhappy instead of thanking her, right? Because obviously that is something that she did for me. She did it for me, right? And I'm grateful now that I have straight teeth, right? Versus whatever my teeth may have looked like before. A quick interruption from today's episode to share with you one of our show sponsors, Best Self Journal. I don't know about you, but I am a bit of a journal junkie. I love goal setting and planning and executing in a way that makes goal getting fun. It wasn't until I was gifted this Best Self Journal by a coach I was working with that I fell in love with it, and now give it to all the fit mamas I begin working privately with. The ease of using this journal and the laying out of the priorities that are needed to move forward on tasks and epic happenings in your life is so simple and fun with this journal. Have you discovered the Best Self Journal yet? I guarantee that using this journal will move you towards feeling your best. And I just ordered the Smart Marks bookmark and the weekly planner pad, which I am so excited for, and I will share how much I am loving those in the future. Productivity, organization, and focus are keys for fitting in all the things that you want, making sure that you are achieving the things you set out for yourself. I'm sure you know how good that feels to be organized, planned, and ready to execute. Click the link below and get your own Best Self Journal today. How could or how did that adversity actually shape you in a positive way? Most often seeing this doesn't come easily, and living through it doesn't either. But these personal growth opportunities do change us for the positive. And it's pretty incredible to look back and actually reflect and see the possibility that all these changes in our life had for us. This potential that can be created within us just from change, right? Just from these discomforts, because nobody actually seeks change. And maybe they do after they've experienced it. I find myself seeking change. I remember when we decided to go on our trip around the world with my kids, and 11:11. I just looked at the clock while I'm recording this. It's 11:11. Lucky times. I always think of my angels. When I see in the numbers, I think angels are watching me. Angels are with me. And that's one of the things that's helped me personally get through is that connection to something greater, that faith. And whether it's God or the universe or your mom or whatever you want to call it in your life, we know that connection to something greater than ourselves absolutely heals and helps us get through. And how do these adversities in our lives shape us? And what do we lean on in those times, right? What do we lean on in those times? Because it never comes easily to see the positive when things are going negatively in our own lives. But it's incredible to see this, right? And if we can choose to see it, and instead of see it through negative eyes or the stories that we've told ourselves, how can we describe our lives and see them as these fortunate circumstances that we got to go through, these storms that created these beautiful rainbows? Sometimes it's almost crazy how these stories that we create based on these events actually don't serve us. And we tell ourselves these stories over and over. I mean, I used to tell myself these stories about my parents getting divorced or moving us all over the world, this or that, as these negative things. And now I'm realizing, God, this was great opportunities and I had a great life, right? We look at these things in retrospect with such positivity, but we can't look at it in those times. And why can't we? It's because we're choosing not to. So I challenge you today, Fit Mom, to look at these things through different eyes, to look at these negative, so-called negative things, like my parents got divorced. This was negative. Well, what if this was the best thing that ever happened to me? I mean, I have a stepfather who has been a great father to me and has been a great role model to me. And my father is still in my life, which is a great opportunity to have two, right? And I'm looking at it in these negative ways as a young child, but how could I now as an adult look back and tell myself a new story? Like, one, my parents did the best they could with what they had and what they knew at the time. And I was obviously a priority in their life. I always was loved and felt loved by them. How about number two? I was not a victim of this. Right? I was not a victim. I was the recipient of incredible opportunities due to this. I got to fly on my first plane ride ever because we were moving. I remember I got to be closer with my dad because we had one-on-one time, because my mom wasn't there hijacking the situation or whatever was happening at the time, right? Let's think back to our own lives and think about opportunities that came instead of the negative that we like to feel, this victim, right? One of my role models and teachers, Carolyn Mace, the beautiful Carolyn Mace, M-Y-S-S, she says this, that we create these stories and we so-called take on this thing called victimhood chic, right? We wear these things as outfits and say we are so chic because we went through this or went through that. But how can we see these things as opportunities instead and get out of the victimhood and just be the shining light that came from any negativity into opportunity? That is the positive. That is the opportunity we have. And like Carolyn Mace does say, this is a day that we can be grateful for. This is a day that will never come again. Right? How can change positively change you into seeing things in a way you never thought possible, right? In a way that you kept yourself stuck. But now you can see by bringing it to light that it's an opportunity for positive change, just like motherhood is an opportunity for transformation, right? This is why I wrote the Love Fit Mama Way, because it is that opportunity for positive change, right? Which is just a blessing, just a blessing. And if we choose to see it that way. I mean, for me, I went to 3 high schools and I moved cities. I was between Toronto, the big city. I was between Ottawa, another big city. I loved these 2 cities and now look back fondly on them and live in neither of them. So I now have this opportunity for moving and growth and change to be somewhere completely different. Again, another city that I've now lived in for over 13 years and have the opportunity to see as my home due to this great change. And that's just one. I mean, I can think of 5 more things off the top of my head as advantages rather than disadvantages for this change, for this moving, for these city moves that I disliked at the time. But I mean, number 1, I got to meet new friends. I got to connect with people. I mean, I have met the most incredible people in every city that I've lived in. I've lived in over 10 cities now. Number 2, I got to move into a new house. I got to have new neighbors. I got to have a new bedroom, a new driveway, a new basketball hoop, a new running route, a new walk to school. And these are some of the best things that I've held on to in my life, including friends that I now have for over 25 years due to these moves. I got to go on trips and places and do things that I never would have gotten to go on. That's incredible. Number 4, I was new, and therefore I got to notice new things in regards to the school. Oh, appreciate different things. Oh, this classroom is nice compared to that last one. Oh, these people are nice. Oh, this looks good. This feels good, right? And I could have seen things as negative, but I did choose to look at things that were positive. And I got to choose things about myself that I wanted to highlight that were positive and not have these stories over and over of what things and people thought about me last year. And number 5, I got closer with my siblings and my mom and my stepdad and my dad and my everybody in my life because of these changes, right? I got to see who I was really close with, who made me feel good when I was not feeling good. My sisters and my brother and my mom and my dad and my stepdad, I got to connect with them in different ways because they were my people, right? And when I went to school, I didn't know anyone and it was new and it was scary. So I got to reconnect closer with people I otherwise would have just taken for granted. I mean, that's just 5 things I can think of here off the top of my head, but I could probably write for days on all the opportunities that came through things that I thought were negative at the time. I mean, it's crazy. And I know my life would have been different if I hadn't moved or if I had moved more. And this is physical things or emotional things that would have happened to me in different ways. But look back on your own life and start to see things that once you thought were this way and shaped you in this way, how could you see those in a different way? How could this change you differently and maybe alleviate some of your suffering and empower you instead? And right now, a quick interruption of today's podcast to send some love to our show's sponsor, Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic is the mushroom coffee you see me posting about and drinking all the time. This stuff is so energizing, delicious, and nutritious, Fit Mama. The benefits are too many to name here. But did you know that we humans are more closely related to fungi than any other kingdom? Interesting, eh? I drink one or more of these little cups of delight almost every day, and the non-jittery boost of energy and calm that I get at the same time, as well as focus. It really helps me focus. My favorite is the Think Mix, which has lion's mane and chaga in it, which is yummy. When you bring it up towards your nose, it does have a little bit of a mushroom aroma, but it tastes so good. It's very earthy and just delicious. I'd love to know which ones you've tried and how you like them. I would really love to hear. So just to give you a quick idea, drinking your mushrooms is an incredible way to boost your immunity and keep your body and mind healthy for all the amazing things you do in a day, Fit Mama. Thank you for sharing. That's all from me. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. It's amazing how things can change us when we just reflect on them in different ways. We all go in waves with how we handle things or how we misinterpret or interpret things based on ourselves being the victim or the victor. And there are times in our life that we're more fragile, right? Hormones racing through us. Sure, we're way more fragile to things. Whether it's puberty or pregnancy and postpartum, it's incredible how things are affected by our environment, our hormones, our personality, our life circumstance, and so many things can absolutely contribute. And I'm not just talking about look on the bright side, because obviously all these things are very real. Every situation we go through is very, very real for us. But ask yourself, how are you stuck in some of these stories? I mean, I ask people this all the time when they tell me certain things. I'm a really good listener and I really want to hear about where the stories of your life have taken you. But I'm also going to ask you things like, how could you change that story? How could you reinterpret something in your life and make you the hero instead, where the story doesn't cripple you but empowers you? Seeing that you are a product of the things that you've endured is very empowering, but it can be disempowering, and it's just under the circumstances you look for it. So remember, regret is one of those things that's a very low level, low vibration, right? It brings you down. How can you rise up by thinking, hey, what did I learn from this experience? Or how did this shape me in a more positive way? Some days I know I am so pumped up, right? Something cannot even stop me when I am pursuing my goals. And then other days, you literally need every forklift in the joint to get me out of bed, right? Even to begin my day. We all have those ups and downs, and it's important to understand how these levels of motivation, inspiration, and even actions change every single day, right? And we can't blame ourselves and go into that negative blame for ourselves and shame and regret over the fact that today we don't want to go to the gym. We went every day last week, great, or we haven't been in months and we just don't want to go today. Let it go, right? Ask yourself, how can that connection with yourself allow you to be more empowered, not more disempowered, right? It just can be a self-connection point, not a self-contention point. Just let yourself be. Stop pushing and pushing and pushing. Because this used to be me. I used to get so frustrated at myself if I didn't want to do something that I had set out for myself. If I had these goals or plans or intentions and then I just didn't feel like it. I used to get mad, right? Where are you getting mad at yourself? I would try and snap myself out by being this verbally abusive self. I mean, Jen, you suck. Or Jen, this is this, that, or the other, you're being lazy. And you know what? That never helped me. And I bet it's not helping you either. It just got me feeling worse about myself and confirming that I was a failure or that I couldn't do this or that or the other. Some days things feel easier than others, but remember, we're always moving. Every cell in ourselves and all around us is always moving. So how those interact on any given day is virtually random and never replicatable. So just know if you can ebb and flow and just be, right? Like a bowling ball going down a lane that has bumpers in the gutters. Instead of going down in the gutter, it just bumps you back into the center alley, right? Allow yourself to just be bumped back in and know that you don't have to get down in those gutters. You don't have to play the victim. You don't have to be in blame, shame, and regret. You can just choose to identify that you did feel that way. And that's a choice you're not going to make anymore because you've learned. Right? You've learned, and don't confirm yourself as a failure. Confirm yourself that you've learned and you can elevate out of that place. None of us wants to be forced into a box or put into that negative place that we've done for so long. Give yourself a hug instead. Pat yourself on the back that you've been through and done the things that you've done. And allow yourself just to love you for the journey. Be there through the journey for yourself as an encouraging, loving connection point. You deserve it. You deserve it. Sometimes it takes a level of maturity and security and letting go of being our own worst enemy. Remember, it doesn't serve us. Realizing that you can be your own best friend and take the ebbs and flows in life as they are, because they are a continuous reality. They are not a thing of the past. They are a thing of the present, and it's a gift. I hear the disappointment in so many Fit Mama voices when they think, oh no, I've fallen off the bandwagon, or I was so good, or I was doing so well. Remember, it's going to go well, and then it's going to not go well again. It's going to go up, and it's going to go down. Remember, when something changes, change is inevitable, and let change you. Change your perspective on change. Just like our children's routines of sleep and eating and the rest, our levels of flow change daily, and it's inevitable. It's the only inevitable, right? It is the only thing we can rely on, is that things will change again. So just like enjoying those nights when you have a great sleep, or that you're relaxed, or your kids sleep through the night, not assuming that will be the norm, but just enjoying it, that that's available to you any day, but not expecting that it has to be that way, or that it will be this way or that way. Know that every day is open to possibility. Keep an open mind. Stay curious. This will keep you intensely motivated, and it will keep you inspired, knowing that anything is possible, and knowing that that certainty of uncertainty is the only inevitable. One of the things that my hubby used to always tell me, and it really sums it up nicely, he used to say, time and the hour pass through the longest day. And this was always one of those lines that kind of frustrated me. I'm like, what does that mean? Time and the hour pass through the longest day. It really means that time is always flowing. And even in the longest day, time is a ticking, right? I like to sum it up like this. This too shall pass, right? This happens and things are always coming and going, but this moment will pass, and the next one, and the next one. And this was very much one of the most helpful things, although at the time when you don't want to hear it, it can be frustrating. But it helped me learn that I was a very all or nothing person, that very black and white that I now teach, right? To remind myself to get in the gray, get in that discomfort of being uncomfortable and in the gray where you don't control everything. But this was one of the things that helped me, understanding that every moment was going to pass, whether it was good, whether I was on, whether it was off, and I was not on. It always was moving. It was always changing. And working towards something while knowing that there's going to be ebbs and flows allowed me to not get stuck in these lows or get stuck in those natural cycles that didn't feel like I was moving forward. Because no matter what, if you flow in that lazy river and allow yourself to just be pulled by the natural energies that are around you and within you, it does feel so good just feels so good, remembering that even when it's so good, this too shall pass. And that's not to bring you down, it's to bring you peace. It's like that physics I talk about. When anything goes up, it's going to come down, right? We're moving up and down. We're moving forward and back, side to side. And so too will things in your life be moving and be changing and not be static. Your sleep, your energy for exercise, your motivation to eat certain things, your taste buds to eat certain things, your desire to go here or do that will all feel good sometimes and not so good other times. There are times and places for them all. So it's not about waiting for them, but there is this very important element of patience, of active patience. Just be aware that when it feels like you're pushing a 1,000,000-pound boulder up a hill, that is not the time. Let yourself feel the flow that feels like a 3-pound boulder and that's rolling downhill instead of uphill. The world is constantly changing, and that change is inevitable. That only constant we know and can rely on is that change. And it's pretty exciting when you think of it that way. That knowing that every moment that passes us is an ending of one, but a beginning of a whole nother one. Each moment that comes brings an opportunity for change. It brings with it the hope and the excitement of being different from the past. It could be better or it could be worse, but if we embrace the change as a natural part of our day and our life cycles, we come to terms with the fact that there will always be change. And those who adapt, those who can adapt, those who choose to adapt will succeed. It is a simple Darwinian survival of the fittest. If we don't adapt, we will die. And our genes will not be passed on to future generations, right? We are the adapters. We've been through years and years, generations of change to be here right now. Know that about yourself. So ask yourself this question. Are you afraid or unwilling to change? Are you open to the fact that change is an opportunity? How will you let change you? Will you allow it to let you grow and flourish and shine like a beautiful flower? Or will it close you off, bury you? If you are choosing to embrace each moment as changing, as limiting, and as fleeting an opportunity, then you allow life to work in your favor, and you're choosing to be empowered and not be beaten down by it. And when you feel unmotivated and feel lethargic and feel like you don't want to get out of bed, start with doing something that does bring you joy, something that gives you confidence that you can do more, something that will get the momentum going. Put on an outfit that makes you feel great. Wear your favorite perfume or makeup. Do your hair. Do something that feels good, that brings that jive back. Right? It's within you. That joy is within you. Have a dance party to your favorite tunes. Go phone a friend or just smile in the mirror over and over at yourself. Take a few minutes to reflect on all you have to be grateful for today. That will shift you into a different mindset altogether, one that is open to growth. At the very least, take some sort of action, one that feels good, like you're taking responsibility and not something that perpetuates that victim mentality of helplessness and hopelessness, but one small step towards the direction you want to be in. Expect nothing of your moments that isn't reflecting change, and set yourself up for happiness through knowing when you're in that gray, you are not setting yourself up for fear and failure and misery, but for joy through change. If you accept that all the elements that aren't within your control and what comes out of your life is a gift, those are the good ones, right? Those are the good ones. The elements that aren't in your control are the good ones. Let them flow, because all things come and go, Fit Mama. Embrace the cyclical change of life. Love it. Live for it, and you will be inspired by it. Change changes us, and it's one of the most incredible aspects of being human. Forgo all your feelings of fear around you and around it, and watch how your world opens up when you open up to change. Our world is so full and so beautiful. And naturally, these life cycles and death cycles for each of us are all around us. We see this for the animals, the flowers, and the humans in our lives. So say to yourself, this too shall pass. This moment will never be here again. So enjoy it. Don't become attached to it, because attachment is where that suffering comes from. The thoughts and the self-created stories are what creates the blame or the limitations. So look neutrally at the events in your life and attribute a more growth-oriented, positive spin, saying, hey, this was just part of the journey. We all know that great new pair of shoes or that new jacket or the handbag will become old news when we replace it with something more exciting. So don't become attached to the things in your life or the stories you've told yourself about what makes you good or not good. Resist this attachment and identification with things, right? When we associate our positive properties with the positive properties of others, I'm good because this purse is pretty. These are the things that cause our negative downward spiraling. Connect with you and the essence of you, and let change you for the positive. Commit to knowing that every moment, whether it's positive or negative, will pass and offer you this opportunity for growth and for life conspiring in your favor. Just allow you to change those stories. And I've seen countless adults and older adults hung up on things that happened more than centuries ago, sometimes more than 50 years ago, that they're still clinging to in the name of victimhood chic. Don't do that. Don't be that. Let yourself not see that as the victim and see the blame, but allow yourself to see it as an opportunity, because you and only you can change the stories that you tell yourself. Nothing and no one in our material world is a constant. Always remember that. Nothing. The car you drive, the house you live in, the clothes and the things you own will all one day be gone, as will you. All we can do is realize that these changes are inevitable, and we have control over only ourselves, our thoughts, our attitudes, our mindset, emotions, and all the smiles and love we have to offer others. So when you think that you're stuck in a rut or unmotivated, begin by taking small, empowering actions, and know this too shall pass, and you will become inspired again. And inevitably, you will become unmotivated and uninspired again as well. Don't fight these cycles. They are a nature. They are natural and part of our nature. Keep reminding yourself this. Change is the one thing that you never want to be working against. It's always working with you. Just choose to see that. It's always supporting you in the direction of flow in your natural life, Fit Mama. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace that change. Namaste, Fit Mama, namaste.